Most human suffering does not come from hunger, pain, or loss. It comes from a single, quiet habit, looking at another person's life and believing it should have been yours. The moment you compare your path to someone else's, peace begins to disappear. This is not a story about success or failure. It is a story about comparison and the invisible cost it demands from everyone who follows it. Long ago, at the edge of a quiet village surrounded by dense forests and low mountains, there lived a woodcutter. His hut was small, built from old timber and patched with mud. Every morning before sunrise, he walked into the forest with an axe on his shoulder. Every evening, he returned with tired hands and an empty silence waiting for him at home. He was not starving, he had enough food to survive, yet his heart was never full. At night, when the village grew quiet, he would sit outside his hut and look toward the center of town. From there, warm lights glowed through large windows, laughter drifted into the air, music echoed faintly. And every night, the same thought returned. Why is happiness always somewhere else? He believed his suffering was caused by what he lacked, not by what he already had. And so, without realizing it, the woodcutter began measuring his life by the lives of others. One evening, after selling his firewood, the woodcutter passed by the grandest house in the village, the home of the local magistrate. Lanterns lined the gates. Servants moved quickly, carrying trays of food. Inside, voices laughed loudly, glasses clinked, and rich fabrics shimmered under candlelight. The woodcutter stopped. "If I lived there," he whispered, "my worries would vanish." At that moment, he noticed an old blind beggar sitting near the road, holding out an empty bowl. The beggar's clothes were torn, his eyes clouded, yet his face looked strangely calm. The woodcutter frowned and walked away. He did not notice the beggar smiling quietly to himself. That night, as the woodcutter walked home through the forest, he encountered a stranger by the roadside. The man wore simple robes, dusty from travel. His beard was long, his eyes sharp yet gentle. A walking staff rested in his hand. "You look troubled," the stranger said. "I am," the woodcutter replied. "Everyone else seems to live better than I do." The stranger nodded slowly. "Tell me," he asked, "who do you believe is the happiest person in this land?" "The powerful," the woodcutter answered without hesitation, "those with wealth, respect, and comfort." The stranger smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, but knowingly. "Then go, ask them yourself." Before the woodcutter could speak again, the stranger turned and disappeared into the darkness. The next day, the woodcutter gathered his courage and approached the magistrate's house. To his surprise, he was allowed inside. The magistrate sat alone in a large room, surrounded by luxury, yet his eyes were sunken, his hands trembling slightly. "Are you happy?" asked the woodcutter. The magistrate laughed bitterly. "Happy? I sleep with guards outside my door. I trust no one. One wrong decision and I lose everything, or my life." His voice lowered. "Power keeps me awake at night." The woodcutter left with unease growing in his chest. Then he visited the richest merchant in town. Gold filled the shelves, ledgers stacked high. "Are you happy?" asked the woodcutter. The merchant sighed. "My wealth owns me. My children avoid me. Every smile I see, I question. Every night I fear betrayal." He shook his head. "I have everything except peace." Lastly, the woodcutter found the most admired scholar, praised for wisdom and talent. "Are you happy?" he asked again. The scholar hesitated. "I must be careful with every word I speak. I am trapped inside expectations. I no longer know who I truly am." The woodcutter left feeling emptier than before. On his way home, he passed the same blind beggar from before. The beggar sat calmly, eating plain rice, humming softly. "You seem content," the woodcutter said. "How is that possible?" The beggar chuckled. "I have nothing worth losing," he replied, "and therefore nothing to fear." The woodcutter froze. "You went searching for happiness," the beggar continued, "in places where it must be paid for with freedom." The woodcutter said nothing. He looked at his hands, scarred, strong, honest. He remembered the mornings in the forest, the wind through the trees, the sound of birds greeting dawn. He remembered sleeping without fear. Tears filled his eyes, not from sorrow, but from understanding. The woodcutter returned to his hut. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. That night he slept deeply, and from that day on he stopped looking into other people's lives to measure his own, for he learned that happiness is not found by climbing higher, but by resting peacefully where you stand. If this story spoke to you, even in a small way, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes putting a feeling into words is the first step to understanding it. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, stories that slow us down and help us see life a little more clearly, feel free to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Another story is waiting for you next. Until then, be kind to yourself, and remember, your path was never meant to look like anyone else's.